Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now, something of a rarity for my channel these days, a fragrance review. And it's a fragrance review with a bit of a difference because it's quite a heritage and old fragrance, but it's one which has teased me for a long time because I've been an avid fragrance collector for quite a few years. I mean, going back to my childhood, I remember being fascinated of the power of fragrance to make me feel more confident and more sartorial. So fragrance, big part of my life. But over those years, I've been slowly but surely collecting many fragrances which I enjoy and have an impact upon my life. And I recently revisited my fragrance collection and I thought to myself, do you know what? There are a few glaring omissions here. There are a few fragrances which you often hear sort of fragrance aficionados saying that they are requisite to have in your gentleman's fragrance collection. And they are things like Eau Sauvage by Dior, not Sauvage, the more common, very populist modern fragrance, but the Eau Sauvage, the original. And things like Polo Green by Ralph Lauren. Lots of fragrances which I haven't actually ever owned. And one such fragrance, which has, as I say, teased me, is Habit Rouge by Guerlain. Now, I hope I'm saying that right, I'm not French speaker. Habit Rouge, it is my belief that that means red garment or red jacket, we might assume it to be, because it's red is very predominant in the colouring here of this fragrance. But it is a very classic gentleman's fragrance, which came into being in 1965, so it's been around 5 years longer than I have on this earth, so it's got some time under its belt. It's still very popular, and it's by the French cosmetics house Guerlain. Now, Guerlain in itself has got a very long and storied history, which is nearly 200 years in length. It's about 195 years old, and for most of its duration it was owned by the same family, the Guerlain family, until I think it was 94 that they were originally absorbed into the huge LVMH, you know, sort of fashion, fragrance, everything house, which exists today. So Habit Rouge, I tell you what, many times I have been in airport departure lounges, gone to the fragrance department, had a little sniff of this stuff and thought, oh, should I buy it or should I not? Never taken the plunge. So the other day, I decided it was time to man up. I bought a bottle and I'm going to tell you about my assessment of it here today. Okay, let's talk about the fragrance itself. We can talk about its heritage as much as you like, but if you don't like the smell of it, it is pointless to own. And the reason why I ummed and ahed about it for a while, every time I sniffed it, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. However, I took the plunge and get a bit on there, and I decided to buy some of their Eau de Parfum, thinking that the Parfum, bit more stronger than the Eau de Toilette, would be something which I would prefer. I like a fragrance which hangs around for a while, and I have to say I've owned it now for a couple of weeks and I am delighted that I eventually purchased it. Now I'm going to talk about the specifics of the fragrance, but what I would say is that it is most certainly, and it's always been described as a sort of amber, woody, little bit of citrus in there. There's a lot of florality in there. In some respects it reminds me, to a degree, of the floral elements of tobacco aftershave. But really, Habit Rouge occupies its own world when it comes to the unusual fragrance. You're not going to smell anything quite like this one, in my opinion. And I've got a collection of hundreds of different fragrances. I would say this one is rather unique. It's often been described as the first Oriental fragrance. And when I think Oriental, I definitely think of slightly spicy fragrances. But this one, there's a hint of sweetness, a candy-like element to it, and certainly there are many floral accords to this fragrance as well. So it's quite different in many respects, but certainly it's an old school fragrance. And when I put it on, my first impression of it is of classiness, of elegance. So it really, if that's what you're looking for in a fragrance, which despite it being around since 1965, I think is equally as relevant to the modern day. Now, it was created by Jean-Paul Guerlain himself, who is a scion of the Guerlain family. So it has got its heritage steeped within that fragrance house. So let me tell you something about what I think of it. I'm going to tell you what the notes are if you're into that sort of thing. So the head notes, so this is what you get when you initially spray it on yourself. You get lemon, bergamot, bit of redwood, orange and lime. So it's an interesting combo. A lot of citrus there actually. The heart of the fragrance, so this is where it sort of dies away after the initial kick, which will give you the florality. You get rose, carnation, jasmine, cedar and sandalwood. So again, the woodsy, but certainly there's a lot of floral accords in there. One could almost say this could easily be worn as a unisex fragrance. It could easily be worn by females, in my opinion, but we'll come to that shortly. And the base notes, this is where it settles down. You get vanilla, you get leather, benzoin, amber and oak moss. So traditional denser fragrances or accords which you typically get in a longer lasting fragrance, which add that body to the fragrance. So certainly there are different tiers there. There's citrus, there is floral, and there is those deeper, denser, woodsy, leathery fragrances which make it that masculine scent, despite the floral elements to it. So when would I recommend wearing this fragrance? And I think I'm in the right time of year for it. I'm making this video in February and it feels appropriate for this time of year. Its fragrance is somewhat dense. You can see it's somewhat dark in its color really, and that gives an indication of its strength. This is an eau de parfum, so perhaps stronger than the eau de toilette by nature, by chemistry. But certainly it feels right for a cooler, perhaps damper time of year. Works for me anyway. So for me, autumn, winter, maybe coming into the beginning of spring as I am now, it's going to be all right. I don't think this is going to be appropriate for summer, where perhaps it's going to be a little dense, where you don't want something that cloying and heavy at the warmer time of year. Who would wear this as regards to age? Well, it is an old-fashioned fragrance. It's been around since '65, and for me that gives a leaning towards who might be likely to wear it. I am 54 years of age, and it feels utterly appropriate for me. I do not think that people under 35, particularly in the modern world with the very sort of charismatic fragrances by houses like Creed and Tom Ford, I don't think people are going to be attracted to this who are perhaps under 35, who are maybe more towards those designer niche type fragrances. This is more old-fashioned. This is for the classical person who perhaps prefers a little elegance and a little culture in the way that their fragrance emanates to those around them. So maybe over 35. Time of day when you would wear this, would you wear it in the day? Would you wear it in the evening? Well, for me, I think it's broadly able to be worn at any time. I mean, I'm wearing it, it's morning time now. Check my watch, it's 10:30 a.m. I put this on after I'd shaved this morning as my fragrance of the day. It works rather well. It's got a nice uplifting zing to it for this time of the morning. But I think, you could easily wear this in the office. People are going to think this is highly office appropriate. You could equally wear this out to a do or an event in the evening where you want a fragrance again which says something about you, and this says classy and elegant. So if that's the impression you're seeking to pass on to others, it's going to be something for you. Would this be a fragrance that I would wear for a special occasion? So maybe it's your wedding day, or something very special for a promotion day in work, or something of that nature. I would say maybe. I mean, it's not necessarily a fragrance which boosts me up with self-esteem like some of my fragrances do. Maybe more powerful, more masculine fragrances like Dracar Noir or Chanel Antaeus, or any number of those powerhouse fragrance. We talked about Sauvage by Dior, a modern super powerhouse fragrance. I wouldn't say this is in that category, but again, if you like classy and elegant, this may be a route to go, with those floral touches, with that sort of vanilla and candy-like element to it as well. There's a cheeriness to it too, I would say. What is its projection like? What is it screaming out to the world that you're wearing this fragrance? I would say less so. It's not super strong. I mean, when you put it on, you'd need to get quite close up to me shortly after application to notice that I'm wearing this. But I think if you got a hint of it, you would be pleasantly surprised. So the projection isn't enormous. I would say it's moderate. And I would say the same longevity. I would say a little bit more than moderate. I would say good. It's definitely something you can apply in the morning, and even in the sort of early afternoon, I get hints of it. You know, I might move suddenly and you get a whiff, or maybe I've been sat in a room, I've got up, gone to the toilet, come back, and you detect it in the air where you were just sitting. So certainly it sticks around a bit. Certainly I'm using an eau de parfum here, which by, you know, its very chemical characteristics makes it more stronger than an eau de toilette, but certainly this one's working out for me, lasts a good length of time throughout the day. Third-party comments when I've been wearing this, actually it's been mixed. Now I normally say most people like my fragrance. This one has been a little mixed. My mother was less keen, and she's got a very sensitive nose to fragrance. When I come in the house, you know, we might welcome each other with a hug. She might detect my aroma, the fragrance I'm wearing that day, and she'll say, "Ooh, that's a nice one," or "You smell good today." This one, it didn't have that initial positivity. She was a bit reserved and wouldn't go down either way. My wife, on the other hand, found it quite pleasing, quite a pleasant fragrance. I think it has the ability to be polarizing. Perhaps this is, for a good few years, why I was you know, umming and ahhing whether or not to bring this into my collection. You know, sometimes I smelled it in the airport lounge and I thought, I'm not sure. Other times I really liked it, but you know, I'm glad I did now, because I've come down, perhaps with prolonged exposure to it, it's become something I really like indeed. What does it look like? Well, you know, this is the bottle I purchased, and I believe they have now transitioned into a universal, more square bottle in appearance in Guerlain. So this is perhaps a slightly older concoction which I purchased. I'll tell you where I got it in a moment, but certainly classy, elegant, nothing fancy. You get the small little tile in the middle, which is obviously in red, picking out the fragrance's characteristic name, Habit Rouge, or red jacket as I like to call it. The packaging it comes in, if that's important to you, maybe you're giving it as a gift, so you want something which looks impressive, but certainly again red, quite a nice colour red with Habit Rouge and a couple of sort of accents to it in a silver foil appearance. 100 millilitres, which I've purchased, but I believe it comes in 50 millilitres as well. Cheaper to buy it in the 100 millilitres if you're going for a prolonged use of it, so very good. So yeah, what are my thoughts? Oh, price. Let me tell you, it's value. That's important. Fragrance can be as good as you like, but if it's too expensive, I'm not buying it. And in this case, I purchased this one from eBay. I got it for £62 British. It is available on Amazon and other sites in excess of £100 for 100 millilitres. I believe I looked at the Guerlain website and it was retailing at about 115. So the lesson here, shop around. I got it for nearly half that price by buying it from eBay, from some other online retailer. So definitely shop around. For £60, which I purchased, I think it's a really good deal. It's good value for money. I probably wouldn't feel the same if I paid full price for it. If I paid £115, I'd be, is it really that good? But for in the region of £60 to £75, I think it's a damn good price point. So in conclusion, what do I think? It's an alluring symphony of fragrances, which is not that common today. To find something with the citrus, with the florality, and with that sort of denser base of, as I say, you know, vanilla and wood. What for me comes across is a creamy, velvety, quite old-fashioned fragrance, which is a little different to the ordinary. So from that point of view, I've been delighted to welcome it into my collection. And yes, it's one which I think is going to be with me for a long time, this one. It's one I can imagine wearing even later into life, into my 80s, if I'm gifted with a long enough life to reach that point. This is a fragrance which I think is quite classy and elegant and clean and fresh and floral, and it's got a lot going on. It is a real complexity for the olfactory senses, and for me, it's a good addition. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this review of Guerlain's Habit Rouge. I've really taken to this one, I think you can tell. I don't do many fragrance reviews these days. I've had a few fragrances in recently, and this is probably the only one I would share with you. So if that was valuable to you, please give the video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, leave me a comment. Tell me I'm wrong in my view on Habit Rouge. Tell me what you would prefer instead. If you'd like to practically support the channel, you could buy me a coffee, a one-off thing, or even become a patron. I make additional video content for my patrons every week, and you can find out how to get involved in all of that in the show notes below, where you'll find the links. So until the next time, take care, smell good, and I will see you again very soon.